just like you. Take my heart, make it yours. So it beats for Romeo. Take my eyes and make them pure. Let me see the way you do.
Don't let that just start to what that is the name. She's not the feeling type. She all about the fame and the money and the hype. She's like the stealing type. Can't get no loving if your money don't ripe. Sweet killer. Can't put back a red on the Rasta man pillar. She's just a sweet killer. Can't put back a foot in at the Rasta man pillar. She's just a sweet killer. Me one day for she kill off Jacob Miller. She's just a sweet killer, yeah. Sweet killer. Hey, stop, da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. Stop, da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. Stop, da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. Stop, da-da-da. Yeah. She make you don't know which way to turn. She's just a sweet killer. Can't put back a foot in at the Rasta man villa. She's just a sweet killer. Me one day for she kill off Jacob Miller. She's just a sweet killer, yeah. Sweet killer, yeah. Sweet killer. Can't put back a red on the Rasta man pillar. She's just a sweet killer. Can't put back a foot in at the Rasta man.
Stay tuned. You're listening to 2020 Vision Radio.
If you need insurance, our service is the best. Home motor insurance can give you more for less. Property insurance can save you a lot of stress. At TDC Insurance Company Limited, we care about your investment. Guarantee you peace of mind. The best team in the business. Guarantee you peace of mind. No other company will guarantee you peace of mind. Together we'll succeed and guarantee you peace of mind.
TDC Insurance Company Limited, where you get more coverage for less.
There, I Celestia, I live in.
Yeah, man. A real life thing, you know.
The Lord is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. Come on with a tune, your selector. Well,
if you need a friend, a really caring friend, you need to try Jesus. Nobody but Jesus. He's a
like father, like son. Join the Powells on 2020 Vision Radio live every Wednesday morning from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. for Powell Overload as they settle on various topical issues from cooking to sports to politics to healthcare, business, survival, religion, whatever pops up on the radar. They'll be taking your calls, so be a part of the midweek morning show every Wednesday on 102.1 FM 2020 Vision Radio. Radio. Call us on 869-669-7312, 869-766-7312. Our landline 869-469-7953, or our overseas line 1-917-460-2187. It's Alan, it's Carlisle. Together, they're the Powell's Overload.
It's time for Power Overload. Power Overload. Let the conversation flow. Carlisle and Alan, bringing all you need to know. Sports, politics, business, everything in play. Hot takes, big headlines, brighten in your day. It's the talk show that hits you with the spark. Bold voices, bright ideas, making them mark. Turn it up, feel the vibe, let the moment unfold. Carlisle and Alan, this is Power Overload. Got something to say? Don't wait. Call in, jump in the mix, join the vibe, let the convo begin. Wednesday mornings just got louder. Be part of the conversation. Power Overload.
When does someone really become a good citizen? I'd like to know for sure. Why, when the ordinary man disagrees with the establishment, they call it treason. Why should they persecute a brother for seeking black power? Don't they know a blind man could see that this is blatant hypocrisy? The real traitors and them are all high in society. Yet the government protecting all of them and penalizing you and me. And in a million different ways they violate the law. It's the same good, no good bastards who oppress the poor. They sell in black market, making excess profit, paying a starvation salary. These good citizens are the architects of economic slavery. They say you have the right to criticize, but then you are victimized, and without any reason. Many a time you find yourself politically paralyzed by that same good citizen. Yet these fakes and phonies enjoy a long life of luxury while they spread corruption throughout the country. When they should be arrested, they're protected and respected in this society. And in a million different ways, they violate the law. It's the same good, no good bastards who oppress the poor. With a false declaration, tax evasion, defrauding customs duty. These good citizens are the architects of economic slavery.
Hi, good morning, everybody. And it's the first Wednesday in the month of August. And on a Wednesday, Alan Powell and I are with you for Powell Overload. And so we are here with you. We apologize for the late start. And we want to tell you that this morning we'll be looking at Culturama, just finished yesterday. We'll take a little look at, more than a little look, at the sinking of the Christina 56 years on. And we'll have a special guest, Mr. Steve Manners, will join us at 10 o'clock. And we'll be looking at politics, we'll be looking at sport, and we'll be spending 2 hours with you. Good morning, Alan, all in red.
Good morning, good morning.
You would be a good member of the actors from St. Kitts. They were dressed in red yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't even see that. I didn't see any of the coverage of the parade. How was it?
I didn't see much of it either. I was otherwise engaged, but I passed the setup. It started a little bit late. Well, more than a little bit late. But people were very enthusiastic, and they, people normally look forward to the last lap jam, if not so much for the parade. And so they were good crowds enjoying themselves in the band.
That's wonderful. And it doesn't seem like there was any violence for the Culturama too, so that's also another good thing.
That's a huge plus. But I have to ask you the question though, are we doing enough to promote Culturama? We're going to get down to a little bit of the inside. But bear in mind that you have Carnival in Antigua, in Anguilla, in Barbados, in the BVI, in Nevis. Are we doing enough to promote the Culturama Festival?
It seems like more is done to promote the Mango Fest at this point than Culturama. And there is also this thing, I have been telling people, you have to look at it as an active competition. Not just with those countries that you mentioned, but with St. Kitts as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth and the fact is that St. Kitts is keeping events during Culturama, and they're promoting them heavily. So it is an alternative for people. So you can look at it and try to deny the fact that there is a competition for people's attention and the dollars and all these type of things, because there are multiple things going on. We could even go further down into the Caribbean, and Barbados had a lot of activities. As Rihanna was there. St. Vincent is just coming off the carnival. Grenada is getting ready to have the carnival. So you have to actively. It's not something where we're going to fight another nation, but there is a competition for eyeballs and attention.
And we have to go back to the basics. When we started, it was supposed to be a cultural festival where we showcase our Culturama. And I'm afraid that we don't seem to be doing enough to promote that aspect of the Culturama. And when it started in 1974, this was a volunteer festival where the members of NEDAX were volunteers. Nobody was paid. But you can very well say that Culturama now is professional. We have people who are paid year-round to manage and promote the festival. So it's not asking too much of them to do more.
Well, I am confused with regards to that statement. You referring to, for example, somebody like Swain?
Swain is a professional. That's his job.
Okay. Well, here's my confusion, okay? We have these people. Right now, for example, the planning for next year Culturama is supposed to start today. You have 1 year, and everybody know when Culturama is going to be next year. It's too consistent of Swain. Every time he put out his first, for example, schedule, you still see very key events and there is no venue. So, for example, the opening of Culturama, for I think the last 2 years, he's been like, it's going to be a secret. I'm going to unleash something that is going to blow your minds. And nobody's minds have been blown. You have, as you say, as I'm saying, a year to plan for this event, and it still seems like things does be catching people off guard about the planning and the logistics of some of the events.
Last year, Antigua and Barbuda released their carnival program in August. We're competing with them. They're just a little short flight away from us. Anguilla is just around the corner. I mean, I can pick up a calendar and look for the first Monday in August in 2027 and tell you the dates of Culturama. Why is it, since we have the same basic activities, that we can't get Culturama to do the same? And as you said, complete the poster. Show us where events will be. I mean, it's not that you said that we are going to have the opening of Culturama and it will be in Fountain, for example. Never happened. But let's just say in Fountain. And somebody is going to protest and say, hey, listen, you can't get this spot in Fountain because it's mine. Why not fill in all those blanks so that people know in advance?
And this is my issue, as I say, with regards to Culturama. It is like one of the best jobs, because you essentially, they have 50 weeks essentially to get ready for Culturama, right? There is no expectation that they're going to put out anything until, I would say, maybe next year, March or something like that. So what happens between this time and that time is very important for me. And we also don't see, my contention is that I see, for example, Division Ministers promote music fest. And when I see at the federal level, I do not see any of the Singits politicians return and say, but I'm gonna advertise Culturama. I'm gonna encourage people to go to Culturama. Maybe I'm missing it, but it's very muted. I don't see, for example, the Singis politicians coming over and having their photograph and letting people know, hey, you need to come to Culturama and experience this. This is part of the country and all that. So these are things that I look at and I'm like, well, why are we being federalists, but who is in the federal government does not want to acknowledge that there is a Nevis? Even one other thing, I have been asking for the attendance figures. It would be important and it could show true growth if we were to say, hey, Queen Show was attended by 2,563 people this year. And this is an increase over last year by X amount, is a decrease by X amount. I'm not even asking for those who paid, because we know that there's going to be some free tickets as well in there, but we don't get any attendance figures. We get more figures for travel in between St. Kitts and Nevis for music festival than what we get for Culturama. We're not gonna hear. And if we are touting how wonderful it was and how much traffic there was during music festival, shouldn't it be the same thing for Culturama? Culturama is actually 2 weeks. So by volume alone, just by the fact that it's a longer event, it should actually be rivaling the numbers of music festival. But I don't get these type of figures, which would also show when we speak about having an impact on the economy. I think all of these figures are important to understand.
It's an interesting point, because I believe that I can call the organizers of the Mango Festival and they would be able to give me numbers. But we simply don't get that for Culturama.
And I understand, like, for the parade, it is difficult for you to say how many people attended the parade. I get that. But as I'm saying, I'm talking about the shows I would even be interested in the pay per view.
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing the pay per view now for I think at least 3 years. What has been the return so far on that model? Every pay per view, well, and really and truly, the only pay per view business left right now is boxing. But they would come out and they would say, "Hey, this was the amount of people who tuned in for this pay per view." Even in that, we're not getting any type of numbers so that I could understand what the revenue looks like. How has the model been beneficial?
And whether or not it's worth it. Rather than maybe 1 year they can say we are doing this for advertising purposes and open it. If you're only getting 50 people for pay-per-view, why not open it free 1 year so that you can get people involved, improve the quality of the production, improve the quality of the shows, reduce the length of time that people are spending in the venues sitting down for the shows. And once you improve the quality that you are selling to people, then you go back and you might start charging.
And my question has been, why isn't Interprimary pay-per-view?
Good.
If the contention is, well, people are paying to go to this event, why is Interprimary not for pay-per-view? As you're saying that there are a number of different models, you can possibly get this thing subsidized or sponsored by somebody. Sponsorship is a great indication of whether or not people are interested. I look at it like as the Super Bowl too. The Super Bowl is the biggest event, at least in America, and even the World Cup final. Why isn't the World Cup final pay-per-view? There are different models, and so we need to look. And the World Cup final is something that was watched by I think billions with a B people. So I just feel like, as I said, there are other ways how we could look at this and have it be beneficial.
We're going to come back to this, but I want you to listen to just a verse from the king. The king told the premier he should probably step down because the horse and buggy broke down, and the judges agreed. Let's listen to just a verse because we have Steve Manners who will be joining us at the top of the hour. We're going to engage him in discussions about the Christina disaster 56 years on. So a verse and your comments.
Mr. Premier, these letters to you I will share. The people's voice disappear when developers claim they play fair. Why can't you see you tearing up we country? Daily concern and the lessons you don't want to learn. Enough critical flaws and enough political errors. We feel in the pain. We want to see Nevis great again. When pressure gets high from a ton load of lies, we no longer in your politics ratings. Your own supporters turning blue shirt backwards. You don't like the water, but performance matters. But you no longer the sheriff in town. It's like your horse and carriage back down. So take this one line from my song, Mr. Premier, please I beg you step down.
You're no longer the sheriff in town. Is like your horse and buggy break down. Take this one line from my song, Mr. Premier, please I beg you step down. The judges agreed. Cairo went direct. He didn't go in any diplomatic roundabout way to deliver his message to the Premier. And his letter was delivered. The judges agreed. He is the new king.
Very interesting. I feel like everybody know that there is, well, at least there is a perception that if you sing against the government, you are unlikely to be successful in the Calypso show. We could point to what's the name of the Rasta man from Cotton Ground?
Papa Wheeler?
Indeed, I think he has been described as a victim of this same thing.
Ras Polo?
Okay, you see what I mean? So he has done tremendously to do this. I don't know if that would change the perception and have people feel like you could go there and is whoever sing the best calypso will ultimately be awarded the crown. But it was a tightly contested because I look at the points. I think he was 10 points away. The lady came this close from going back to back. The Empress Lyrica.
Yeah, Empress. Yeah.
So it seemed like it was a tightly contested show, and the king has done tremendously well, as I said, to sing against the government and to still end up with the crown. That would only mean that he was outstanding in my estimation.
And a man who normally sings for the government did not place this and that. You surprised?
Well, I think that this and that has had his time. I would love, in order for this thing to continue to go on for another 50 years, that some of these older Calypsonians start to create their own branch of Calypsonian. They need to find younger people, and we need to know, well, okay, this is the Astro branch. This is the this and that. This is the Miko. You understand? So that it is like coaching trees in basketball or the NFL. You don't just get there and you stop, and that's the end of that. So I would like to see them start to have influence, but the influence being over the younger Calypsonians and helping them to get better at their craft. But I feel like this and that time, he had a wonderful time. We saw countless battles between him and Miko. So he's not taking away from his contribution, but I feel like he how he can contribute would be in a different manner than on the stage.
Okay, I got you. Anything else? And there's a lot more on Culturama, but I don't know if you have anything else because we're gonna have Steve Manners with us very shortly.
Well, the one thing I would say about Culturama, and I had thought this initially, Reese had told me long time ago we need to emphasize the fets, and the weekend supposed to be fets, and let we put Queen Show and all these different shows in the week. It is one of the models that has been successful in the other islands, and we need to consider adapting that model in Nevis for Culturama.
So you'd leave Juve on Monday naturally.
Indeed.
And Randy's show on Monday night. Tuesday is last lap, so you're not going to interfere with those 2 days.
No.
Thank you for listening to 2020 Vision Radio.
From Queen to
You're
Nevis,
thinking.
Nevis.
Sorry about that, Alan. You're thinking that apart from that, you want to see the fets Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
So I think the first Sunday is Talented Youth or something like so.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that Antigua doesn't even have the Queen Show during the carnival? I think the Queen Show is like the Wednesday before. I saw Anguilla this year have the Queen Show in 2 parts, none of which were on the weekend. I think they were on back-to-back Wednesdays. So is more of an emphasis that, and this is I'm explaining based upon Reese's rationale. He's like, when people come in, they come in to have fun and party. This would not impact something, for example, like food fair.
I got you.
You could still have the food fair, but people come in and they want to party Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the Juve man in Monday and that Tuesday there, they basically want 5 days of partying and are not concerned with the shows that may be more local in their scope. So, as I said, this is the model that has been adapted in other countries. I see Abu Anal reach Antigua.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something that we need to send people out there to understand what is going on, why these decisions are made, and we need to look seriously at tweaking our current position.
Thank you very much, Alan. We are going to take a break from Culturama because we have Steve Manners online now, and we are going to be discussing the Christina disaster. Good morning, Steve. How are you doing?
Hi, good morning. I'm doing well. Happy to join you and Alan. Of course, I'm cognizant of the fact that you both come from the Manners strain. So
absolutely,
it feels like family, and I'm happy to join you this morning to talk about the Christina disaster 56 years on.
Yeah, my grandmother, Cillian Martin Powell, was a Manners.
Mm-hmm.
Her mother was Dorcas Manners.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been getting to know a lot more about the Manners part of the family recently. Steve, you're one of those persons who has done a tremendous amount of work on the Christina disaster. And this morning, I'm not going to ask you a lot of questions because I feel we would get more if we allow you to speak. In setting up recently for, I think it was the 50th anniversary, you did a lot of research, a lot of interviews and so on. But I'm going to start by saying that you lost your uncle and a cousin on the MV Christina. So you take us back and you tell us your memories of the Christina disaster, and we'll interject every now and then.
Okay, well, I remember that Saturday afternoon, Orville and myself, my older brother, we were playing cricket in the yard when a lady from River Path came down from Rollins. Her name was Safer Amory, and she had a straw basket on her head. And she said, Miss Manners, Christina gone down, everybody drowned. My mother was doing some ironing, and she said, what do you mean everybody drowned? Nobody can drown between St. Kitts and Nevis. And then I heard her cry out because she remembered that her brother, James Manners, at the corner of Morning Star, who was first headmaster of the Prospect School when it opened in 1965 until his death, that he had visited us the night before and he was planning to go St. Kitts on the Saturday. His wife is from Tabernacle St. Kitts, so he used to go down and check on the family business. And then she screeched out and she said, oh my God, brother was on the boat. She called up my father and she said, let's go into town. She told Orville and me and Orville to stay at home, and everybody else headed into town. And I remember we went to Market Shop, and we wandered over to Market Shop, and I remember people like Victor Swanston coming in, telling us tales about, people who had perished, etc., etc. And then when it got very dark, we went home, and Orville gave me a Biggles book to read. And up to now I haven't read a single word because there were tears dropping down my eyes. I didn't get to go into town or anything. And incidentally, my sister, who passed away 2 years ago, she left in Nevis on the exact day that the Christina sank. She was supposed to go to St. Kitts to travel onwards, and Hansel and my mother were supposed to travel with her. But on the Friday, she was a teacher at the Ivor Walter School, well, then Prospect School, and on the Friday she got a flight to Antigua, or else my mother and Hansel would have traveled to St. Kitts to see her off. So that was a bit of a positive that she escaped that, but my uncle James Elliott and his son Kennedy, age 9, were not so lucky. And so they both perished on the MV Christina.
Steve, the Christina was a government-owned and operated ferry. Reading all the material that I've read, I'm yet to reach the opinion that the government has ever taken full responsibility for the overloading of the boat.
Well, let's look at that. That's a very important point. Christina sank on August 1st, 1970. That is 3 years after we became the first in the OECS to get associated statehood with Britain, which means we were taking one step to independence. That was in February of 1967. So we were still a colony. And one of the things that we have not quite come to terms with is, and I don't want to use the word blame, I prefer to use the word responsibility. It was the British who gave the government of St. Kitts $130,000 to get a new boat, because prior to that, the ferry was privately operated. MV Anslin and MV Rehoboth were the two boats which preceded the Christina. And so an approach was made to Guyana to get a ferry to replace those privately owned vessels. And Sproston, Sproston, is the company that built the boat. It was finished in May of 1959. Paul Southwell was the one who went to Guyana to see it rolled into the waters, and for 11 years it plied the trade. So no one, and I kind of say no one, has really taken real responsibility for what happened then. And this brings me to a very important point. I don't know if you heard the Prime Minister in the House of Assembly, or the House of Parliament rather, last week Thursday. Obviously the Christina was weighing on his mind, and he made a statement saying basically that a monument which had been built in St. Kitts, completed in 2022, which is not yet commissioned, would be commissioned some way down the road when a museum of St. Kitts is completed. Now, in 2020, August of 2020, when we were doing the Christina disaster 50 years on, St. Kitts had a Christina demonstration, or Christina, well, showing different things related to the Christina. And that was held at the old Treasury building, which they're now trying to turn into a museum. So that project has been going on for at least 6 years. And he's promising that when everything is done, then they will open or commission the monument which is built in St. Kitts. We know that makes absolutely no sense. The bottom line is that it was built by a Timothy Harris administration, and as happened in these countries here, the Labour Party and St. Kitts don't want to open it. They should. He promised in 2023 that it will be opened in time for Independence 40. If you look at the Independence 43, that is 2026 program, it's on the top of the list for August 1st. So it should have happened, and it didn't happen. I think that's a bit of a travesty that 4 years after a monument was built in St. Kitts, and 56 years after, governments in St. Kitts, especially the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, which was the government in place on August 1st, 1970, can't come to the point where they have a monument in St. Kitts. I believe you may have that tape from the Prime Minister explaining his rationale in the House of Assembly, the Parliament in St. Kitts. You might want to play that now.
And during this time, we also remember persons who would have lost their lives due to the Christina disaster, Madam Speaker. And let us never ever forget that incident that would have taken so many lives and would have affected us even to this day. Madam Speaker, presently, as you know, we have a monument in recognition of those who would have lost their lives next to our National Museum, which we are wrapping up the refurbishment on, and so we're hoping to be able to present all of it in, I would say, to our people, the National Museum and all that they would have in there that would also represent what took place during the Christina disaster, and also the monument dedicated to those who would have lost their lives.
Steve, when you look at the numbers, the boat was supposed to carry 155 people. Over 200 persons lost their lives. Most of them Navy-Johns or with Navy-John ties. I get the impression that the people on St. Kitts, and especially the people in government, do not quite understand the lingering effects of the loss to so many families and communities in Nevis that Christina triggered, and the memories that people still have.
Well, you said over 200 persons. The number, which is often quoted, is about that the boat had about 291 survivors. Yes, you're correct. 233 people lost their lives, which means that there were well over 300 people on that boat. It was almost double. You're absolutely right. There have been two different experiences. On Nevis, for instance, in 2001, the government of Premier Vance Amory built the monument on the Samuel Hunkins Drive, and in 2011, the administration of which you were a part, the Joseph Parry administration, built a monument at the Bath Cemetery. So we have two. St. Kitts have eventually one, but still not commissioned. Now, people believe that at least 240 people lost their lives on that Christina disaster. As a matter of fact, Whitman Brown tells me that all the time. Of course, you know, he has written 4 books and has been documentarian-in-chief on the Christina disaster. People reach out to him. He told me there are people in St. Thomas who say I was on the boat and my name is not listed. I visited with Ozzy this morning, who is a poster child of the Christina disaster, who is, I think, the only person who has written his story. And he told me the same thing. There has to be at least 240 persons, because he has a sister from Fountain who is the niece of Tanny, the taxi driver. Her name is Anita Libert, whose name has never been listed. There's a guy from Rollins called Eustace Richards who approached me at the ceremony 3 years ago and said, my name is not there. My name has never been listed. It's listed on the program this year. The mighty Pat from St. Thomas, from St. Kitts, Calypsonian, who resides in St. Thomas and was Calypso King down there a couple of times, his name got added rather belatedly. So I'm saying the lived experience of people from Nevis has been very different to the lived experience in St. Kitts. And I like to say the St. Kitts government, especially the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, has treated the Christina disaster like the invisible truth. I don't think they fully understand the impact it has had on the people of Nevis and the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Do you know, for instance, and I visited it at the cemetery, Springfield Cemetery in 2020, they don't even have a marking where most of the people are buried. We have something here at the Bath Cemetery. 38 bodies were interred there, but because the mechanism, the rescue boats, the revenue cutter, people who came from international places to help us, the point of reference was Bastille. And so most of the dead are buried at the Springfield Cemetery. They don't even have a mark in there unless they've done it in the last 6 years.
It's sad. Steve, the sinking of the ferry in Guyana has reopened old wounds for people here in Nevis, because I spoke to some people, some who came to look for me, some who I went to look for, and some of them still don't want to discuss the hurt and the pain of losing loved ones, including the sole breadwinner.
Yep.
And the fact that the families were just separated. You know, they still can't talk about it, and the ferry in disaster in Guyana has brought all of that to the fore once again.
Yes, most definitely, because both boats were built by the same company. Both are flat-bottom boats, ideal for river travel and not open water travel. So yes, it has brought this thing back front and center. Now at Saturday's ceremony, I sat between Calvin Puffy Jones, you know him, he works at Digicel, and Ben Hill of Morning Star. No, I couldn't be more strategically placed because I know their stories. Ben, for instance, his mother is from the village in St. Kitts. His father was in St. Croix when the Christina sank, and there were either 8 or 9 children who had lost their mother, father in the Virgin Islands, and Hailita Liebert, who is the Deputy Governor General of Nevis and who taught at the Brown Pasture School, that taught many of them. She lives about 200 yards away from where they live, and she became their foster mother overnight. And so we know the Hill story. And then Puffy, for instance, was 2 months old. He wrote in a post that I made is that he normally reads posts and move on, but he had to comment on that one because he wanted everybody to take 10 seconds to imagine what it is like to have never seen your mother's face. When we did the Christina disaster 50 years on, Thelma Paris was a member of our team. She was 11 months old. Her mother was 32, Hannah Paris of Craddock Road, a huckster, or a Turner as we call them. That family became disintegrated. When we were doing this commemoration in 2020, they were hoping for the first time in 50 years to come together as a family. So we were having a meeting on a Saturday at the Red Cross building, and all of a sudden, Thelma disappeared. Then she came out, we were looking around for her, we couldn't figure where she had gone. Then she came out of the bathroom in tears because she had gone to place a call to her brother, I think it was in Maryland, and just to vent and to wish that they could come together over the commemoration. It didn't happen because COVID intervened, and I don't know up to know if after 15 years, 56 years now, where they've come together as one family. We know of her brother in St. Kitts who became a chemist. People were tossed hither and yon. We know of Methodist minister Othniel Paris, who became a Daly, because your co-host, Kelvin Daly's family, took him in as good Methodists. And so the stories are very, very raw sometimes and very real. And that gets me to the point of Saturday's ceremony. It has become very mundane. I did a very quick, cursory glance through the list of survivors. Off the top, there are about 16 of them that I can pick. There are more, from 91. Only 2 of those showed up at the ceremony on Saturday. Charles Tinman Chapman of Rice's, who was 14 years old at the time. Ivor Brooks from Brownhill, who travels from wherever in the world he is to be there. Somebody who is very prominent in the society asked me, who's that guy, when they asked them to stand. All that happens at that ceremony, they ask survivors to stand. I believe we need to go a little further than that. There are so many Christina stories out there which are untold. I believe at least they should be brought to the podium, asked to say a few words, talk about their lived experiences, etc., etc., so that people understand what they're going through. I went to see Ozzy, as I said, because Ozzy is always there. He wasn't. You know what he told me this morning? He said, listen, I wasn't there this year. I wasn't there last year. I wasn't there the year before. It is just a photo op. He said he was so disappointed at what happened during the 50th anniversary, he decided he's not going again, because in his mind, after all these years, nobody has reached out to him, given him a token of atonement, I can call it. For instance, when the building opens or the monument opens in St. Kitts, I'm going to make some calls right now. They have to begin to show a level of atonement to some of the people who have suffered. And I recommend that the first two should be Puffy, who lost his mother at age 2, and Telma, the youngest of her family, who lost her mother at age 11. I know Telma has 2 sons. Whether it is reaching out to ensure that her children get a college education, I don't know if Puffy has children, but the government has to reach out to these people. And don't think they will just sneak it in and say they officially opened it. I think Dr. Whitman Brown should be invited as a featured speaker. Nobody has done the work that he has done, and I think he should receive a national honor, as well as Winston Skeet, who is said to have saved up to 68 people on that day. So we haven't given the ceremony the recognition it deserves, and the one in Nevis is becoming a very mundane event.
Tell me about the theme and the relevance of the theme this year.
Well, it's a curious one, as I wrote on Facebook, from tears to triumph. I understand the tears. I understand that fully. Wilson Condell, the father of the saxophonist of the Grand Masters, lives just above Stryker at Hermitage. He lost his mother and 2 siblings. He was an employee at age 31 at the sugar factory in St. Kitts, and you know the boat didn't run on a Thursday, so he was one of the welders who went down to do some work. The boat has recently come back from dry dock in Barbados, but they had to do some remedial work there. And from 1970 to now, when I interviewed him, he was 81 years of age, so he's about 86, 87 at the moment. The man cried like a baby, because he's been living with the thought for 50-odd years that something he maybe should have fixed, he and his team didn't fix on the MV Christina. The thinking is that the boat started taking in water on the Friday, and eventually I think it had 5 bulkheads which were meant to keep it afloat. So the theme, Tears to Triumph, I don't quite understand. I understand the tears because I've seen many. One of the hardest interviews I had to keep trying to get was from Ailita Libert, which we eventually did at Government House, because she couldn't bring herself to talk about it. The grief of children at Morning Star, the Hills, all clutching to her because their mother had perished. And so the triumph part of it, we haven't triumphed yet. And as I said, the Christina disaster is remembered even more today because of the sinking of the MV Berima, which has brought back the memories front and center.
It's still painful, Steve. I didn't lose myself any family members directly, but I lost neighbors on both sides. You know, there in Zion. Edward Smith, I will remember. There is also another gentleman, we used to call him Bruce Cock. And then the Browns, Fordy Brown lost his wife. And that Brown family, Mrs. Brown is the mother of Jennifer Brown. And that clan. They separated. They went to different homes and so on. My younger sister Merv and my brother Trevor, they lost their grandmother. You know, and these were people who went to St. Kitts regularly as hucksters, you know, to try to make a living. But then again, I will keep coming back, Steve. Boat was supposed to hold 155, and 233 persons lost their lives. We didn't hear that anybody lost their job. We didn't hear that anybody was reprimanded. We didn't hear any of that. We didn't hear the government taking responsibility for the loss of lives that happened back then in 1970. And it is a ghost that follows us.
Yeah. Well, as I said, the Labour Party has treated it like the invisible truth. There was a commission of inquiry, as you said. I don't know if penalties were to be exacted on people, because there were constant warnings about the overcrowding. It was a holiday weekend. Nevis was always the center of attention because there was horse racing over at Newcastle. There's a popular restaurant called Bambouche where the airport is located. Cannon at Central was a big dancing place where everybody would roll back to steel band and string band. So everybody was heading to Nevis, and everybody jumped on the boat. How can you tell somebody in St. Kitts who had been working in Nevis, in St. Kitts all week, that they were not to travel to Nevis on that day, where all the activities were there? We still have August weekend as a big one because it's Culturama, etc. So there was negligence. Somebody like lawyer Cecil Byron had written many letters warning the government. But look at it, 56 years after, the same thing happened in Guyana. The boat was badly overloaded. I understand, reading through the newspapers in Guyana, that the people who work at the ferry terminal are badly underpaid, and so what they normally do is accept, let's say, the allowed persons allowed is 150. They would collect money for 150 or issue tickets, and then they would allow other people to rush the boat and come on, and they would pocket the money. So there is some corruption there. But bear in mind, that journey in Guyana was 24 hours. It's a long journey. 83,000 miles Guyana is, of course. So it's a very, very huge country. And if you're abandoned in Georgetown, for instance, you may not get another boat until a few days after, and you've got your family to go to. What I find mystifying is that even before the panel of inquiry, the commission of inquiry has been put to work, they've already charged the captain and some of his crew with 72 counts of murder. So the investigation has not yet happened, but they're already casting blame on the captain. The boat had not had its regular maintenance, and the government oversight was poor. Thank God that in St. Kitts Nevis we have learned some lessons, and we are on to a much better path here. I think we are a lot safer now than we were in 1970.
Don't know if Alan have any questions for you, but I'll just ask you, Steve, suppose you were given responsibility to plan the ceremony next year, and we will have it. We will continue to remember those who died on the Christina. What major changes would you make to the ceremony in terms of recognizing those persons who are left as survivors and those persons who lost?
Well, that's a big supposition, a really big supposition. In 2021, for instance, when they were having the ceremony, coming out of the commemoration we had in 2020, we produced a booklet with the 50 most iconic pictures which we took. Skeet at sea, for instance, doing the customary wreath laying. Denise Gordon doing a song which we encouraged her to do along with Jazzy Chiverton. All the former or present prime ministers and premiers gathered at the Christina Memorial. I spoke to Wakely Daniel, the permanent secretary, and told him that we would like to make a presentation of this booklet to the premier, the deputy governor general, all those ministers on both St. Kitts and Nevis who were there. You know how we got 2 minutes? I'll tell you the story. Wakely Daniel did not get back to me to give our committee 2 minutes to present these booklets. I wasn't going to do it. Thelma Paris was the one designated to do it. When I realized he wasn't going to get back, I made a post saying that we were going to present the booklet, etc. And that is when he called back a little agitated and begrudgingly allowed us to do a presentation which depicted the work we had done. So supposition, no. That's not going to happen next year. We know how this country operates, and certain things are kept for certain people. But in terms of changes, the program normally goes like this: arrival of the Premier, arrival of the Deputy Governor General. You hand it over to the Nevis Christian Council where they do their thing, the song. Then you have about 3 persons reading the names of those who perished, and then the names of the survivors, etc. And then they ask if any survivors are here, and ask them to stand, and then there's a wreath-laying ceremony and a photo opportunity. That has to be enhanced. The leader of the NRP, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, wrote an article the day of the ceremony. Let me see if I can find it. She attended the ceremony, and she said, genuine compassion. Attending the Christina Memorial Service yesterday left me with a heavy heart, not just for the 233 souls we lost in 1970, but for those still walking among us. While the event had the usual prayers, scriptures, and carefully timed photo opportunities for political parties, it lacked the one thing that truly matters: genuine compassion. Our survivors and grieving families were sitting right there, yet the emotional connection to the ongoing pain felt entirely absent. Ivor comes each year. A lady living in Tortola came for the first time yesterday. What are they thinking, and how are they feeling after all these years? This sacred day of remembrance should never be used as a political backdrop or a public relations exercise. We owe our people real empathy, active support, and a presence that truly honors their grief. So here are some of the things I would add. There's a fellow named Clifford Brown at Madden's, across from the Madden's playfield. He's in his 70s. He was about 19, 20 when the Christina went down. He helped save my brother-in-law, Terrence Brad Jeffers, who was 14 going on 15. Clifford Brown is incapacitated. He has lost the ability to walk. I would like to see a donation made to him. He doesn't have to be there physically. His family members can come, whether it's a wheelchair, a stroller, something to show that we remember you. My brother-in-law, Terrence Brad Jeffers, has never been to a memorial because it's still raw. When they brought him to Pasha Gate on the night of the disaster, he was paraded on shoulders like a champion. And he has never attended. I visited him the day after the ceremony. I said, why weren't you there? I know his answer. Boy, I ain't coming to them things. Has anybody ever reached out to him? When the Christina sank, we didn't have things like guidance counselors, etc. We have a lot around us now. The government needs to reach out to these people. And as I said before, Calvin Puffy Jones, who was 2 months old, and Thelma Paris, who was 11 months old and they lost their mother, I would make a very tangible presentation to them to show compassion and show that we care. That at least should happen. And we should also allow people to tell our stories. Diana Williams, formerly of Main Street but now owns the Bird Rock Hotel, she was one of only 8 women who survived the Christina disaster. Why can't she be asked to give a 5-minute presentation, which she held on to a crate until she was picked up, but her father had taught her to swim on Gallows Bay. So she's a resilient person, a successful businesswoman, Why can't she be asked in 5 minutes to inspire some of these people who are still struggling? And the most poignant of all, Franklin Brown was buried on March 28th, the day of the 25th anniversary of the Nevis to St. Kitts Cross Channel swim. We know that the boat went down at 4:10 because he was wearing a watch which when it hit the water went dead. That's the only way we knew what time the boat went down. Did they reach out to the Brown family? Couldn't some swim activity. We have 2 athletes who went to the games in Scotland, the Commonwealth Games. We have athletes now in the Dominican Republic. Swim events have sprung up all over the place. Why can't the government indicate that we will give an award to the outstanding swimmer of the year, young swimmer in the year of the year in one of these competitions? Those are tangible ways of showing that you care. For a long time, Brown was the oldest known survivor, passed away at age 97. He was an educator. He has 2 sons who has represented the West Indies, a son and a grandson who has represented the West Indies because, you know, he was an outstanding teacher coach at the New River School.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't some honor bearing his name be given to inspire young swimmers? Maybe an award for the oldest person, local person, who swims the channel, because every year, and we had 500 swimmers this year, the swimmers from St. Kitts, Nevis, well, St. Nevis in particular, maybe numbered 10 or 15. Not many locals come out. So you can inspire people to do more marine activities by having an honor in the name of Franklin Brown. So those are some of the changes I would make.
Just quickly, you spoke about Franklin Brown, my former headmaster. You should know that his son-in-law, Chris, lost his father on the Christina.
And the former cricketer, Orville Morton, an opening batsman for Nevis. And of course, the story is well known, but I don't know if the government people who planned this know this. Your classmate Vita. Franklin Brown had a premonition, which included Vita, which is what helped him and his son Roger to survive. They had Vita on their minds. And so Vita can come. I don't know if she's here at the moment. I haven't seen her lately. She could come and give an inspiring story as well. But simply bringing survivors and their families there to say, stand up and be recognized is simply not enough.
Alan, any questions?
Yes, I actually have 2 questions.
Yes.
One question is, I was doing some research as you were speaking, and I realized that there was a 126-page report done as a result of the Commission of Inquiry. There are also other documents that I think are foundational to St. Christopher and Nevis. So, for example, the white paper that PAM put out before independence. Why do you think we have not sought to get copies of these, what I look at as foundational documents? Because for me, we're supposed to teach not just Caribbean history, but St. Kitts and Nevis history. You have to know about certain of these things so that you know how the island was formed into a federation, so that you have the mindset. I think that I see it in other countries, in the United States, even in other smaller islands. I see them preserve these documents. Why do you think we have not sought to get these documents so that, for example, somebody could either go to the library or access a digital copy?
Well, I think we haven't tested the water. I think we have Freedom of Information Act. So there are people who can test that and see. I don't think they'll be hiding that all these years. I think it needs to be tested. Maybe none of us, or not many of us, have tried to to do those things. Let me tell you, the Christina disaster has been taboo for a long time. The government has had it as taboo, and a lot of the people who are involved have had it as taboo. So it's up to us to test it using the acts which the government have provided for us, like the Freedom of Information Act. So that is what needs to be done. But then it brings me to the work which Whitman Brown has done for 4 decades. Those books, first one I think was 1986 or 84, and the last one around 2020. So he has devoted almost 4 decades to document this. We tried in 2020 to stand on his shoulder and do some more documentation, etc. But I believe that those documents would become available if the right approaches are made.
Okay. And the second question is, I understand you're speaking about...
You're a bit low.
Hello?
Yeah, you're a bit low. I'm having a challenge hearing.
No. The second question is, I heard you speaking about responsibility. My question with regards to the responsibility is that there are 2 types of responsibility you could have. Whether or not there was some type of criminal liability that was incurred as a result of this, but there was also the civil liability. And I know a number of people in St. Kitts and Nevis, they think incorrectly that you cannot proceed with a case unless there has been some type of criminal charges. My question is, can you recall whether anybody attempted to secure civil liability for the wrong?
No, well, I don't know of any instances like that. And on Saturday last, Kelvin and his crew had a very, very, very nice discussion on that. Who does liability fall on? We were a colony. England has not said anything about it. The local government maybe figured that they're covered by the fact that they were in transition to an independent nation in 1983. I don't know of any attempted cases, and I don't know that any case at this point in time is going to help. So what I'm looking for is what I call atonement, reaching out to some of these people and showing them in tangible ways that even though we know you had hurt and pain 56 years ago and since, that we as a responsible government can still do something to atone. That is personally where I think it is. The Ghana situation, I definitely think court cases are going to come out of that. And government will have to bear the liability in that case.
Yeah, I was seeing that the what should we call them? The captain and the first mate, those people, they were charged with 72 charges of murder.
Yeah, they have.
I think
which I think are ill-placed anyway.
By the way.
All right. Well, but Carlisle, I know the time is heading out now, but just one more thing, and this was raised by Daly and crew on Saturday as well. Every year, the memorial is held at the Samuel Hunkins Drive. Nobody pays a visit to the monument at the Bath Cemetery, where 38 persons are bestowed. I think that has to be corrected. I understand why it's held at the Samuel Hunkins Drive. It was there first. You have the Museum of History there, so you can put up a nice tent. People, if they're coming from St. Kitts, can come there easily off the ferry there. But to have left the monument at Bath out of the commemoration all these years need to be corrected. Because that is where the people are buried, 38 of them. So after laying wreaths at the Hamilton Place, at the museum just outside there, the government officials should head to the Bath Cemetery. At the end of it on Saturday, they were all busy taking photo ops. And Carlisle, I don't know if you noticed, about 10 members of the People's Action Movement came over for the first time, and they said this will become the norm. But it seems as if the moment for both them and the CCM was to have photo ops at the foot of the memorial, signaling that they represent the new unity.
If my memory serves me right, Steve, I believe that the Joseph Parry-led administration did on one occasion have the ceremony at the Bath Cemetery.
Yes, in 2011.
Yes.
That is when it was officially opened, but we have not gone back there in 15 years.
Correct. Steve, I want to thank you so much. You reminded me of so many things. I didn't have anybody directly on the boat, but you almost moved me to tears this morning. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's been I wanted to say pleasure, but it's not a pleasurable thing to talk about. But thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye, Alan as well.
Okay. Alan, we're going to come back with other discussions right after this.
It's time for Power Overload. Let the conversation flow. Paul Island, Alan, bringing all you need to know. Sports, politics, business, everything in play. Hot takes, big headlines, writing in your day. It's the talk show that hits you with the spark. Bold voices, bright ideas, making them mark. Turn it up, feel the vibe, let the moment unfold. Carl Island, Alan, this is Power Overload. Got something to say? Don't wait. Call in, jump in the mix, join the vibe, let the convo begin. Wednesday mornings just got louder. Be part of the conversation. Power Overload.
Before there were bridges of steel, there was the Christina. She carried more than passengers. She carried friendship, family, laughter, music, fresh produce, and love. Every crossing reminded us that St. Kitts and Nevis were never just two islands. We were always one people. Saturday afternoon by the bar step here. Everybody's smiling, friends drawing near. The Christina waiting beneath the blue sky. Another happy journey as the seagulls fly. Farmers and street vendors from Nevis with baskets so grand. Mangoes and breadfruit grown by loving hands. Sweet potatoes, pumpkins, sugar, apples too. Bringing island goodness fresh for me and you. Across the narrow side by side. One people carried by the tide. From Boston to Charlestown Bay. Love crossed the water every day. Different islands, one family, bound together by the sea. The Christina carried more than dreams. She carried you and me. Children laughed as the whistle would blow. Everyone waving to the friends below. Some went for cricket, some danced all night. Some chased young love beneath the moonlight. August holidays, carnival days, church on Sunday, music and praise. Every journey told another story. Every crossing shared our glory. No passport needed, just open hearts. No strangers waiting, only family. From Market Street to Charlestown Square,
That's Bobby J singing about the Christina. Alan, anything burning on your mind? I'm not hearing you, Alan. See if you turned off something.
Yeah, I had mute my mic.
Okay.
Sorry about that. To get back to the Culturama issue, I did tell you last week that I feel like there may be Culturama might be at a point where we have to put it beyond politics. Really and truly, we have to put it beyond politics. I did not know that Culturama was political until in the late 2000s when NRF get it. Because every Culturama I had gone to that point, I never look at it as a CCM Culturama. I just look at it as a again Culturama. But when NRP got in office, I was told by somebody I'm not participating in this thing. I done with that. And I live to see the person return to Culturama when NRP left office. And so I just telling you when I gave you that alternative, I overall simply want the best for Culturama. And if the best means that there is no political party in control of Culturama, I am fine with that. And so that's why I say maybe it needs to be a non-profit company, and the shareholders are the people. The people would decide who gonna be the directors, etc. And really have more of a say in how the Culturama goes. Maybe it just needs to be privatized, and it's a profit-making venture. But definitely, I feel like there are changes that are required. And having said that, one of my issues with Mr. Evelyn, not Eric Evelyn, Mr. Swain Evelyn, is when you have a high government position, you're a director, you're a supervisor, any of these things, you have to engage in politics. And I'm not saying that you have to be out there looking for votes or anything, but you also have all of your stakeholders are your constituents. So the vendors, you got to keep them happy. You got to keep the talent happy. You got to keep the people who doing logistics for you happy. And you also have to convey your vision to the minister and to the government overall to get them to fund this vision. I could give the example of Mr. Fian Jones, and it seems like he is able to convey and get a lot of marketing, get travel to market the Mango Fest way more than Culturama, which is actually supposed to be a bigger event. So whoever it is gets into these positions has to understand that they will not be escaping politics. Even if you are the head of a bank in St. Kitts and Nevis, you cannot escape politics because you're going to be regulated. In order to move in certain ways, you are going to have to deal with the politicians. And this is why I try to tell people, there's no real thing, there's no real aspect that you are going to point out to me that does not ultimately, at the end of the day, require you to engage in some kind of politics, because politics is simply the affairs of the people, and the affairs of the people moving up and down day to day. So you have to be aware of what these things are and be able to address them. It does not feel like all of the constituents of culture are happy. I cannot understand, for example, how you would feel comfortable with a festival about your culture and actively be in a tussle with your local bands, not giving them any type of way to boost up themselves. When we look at, I think a couple months ago, somebody was given the opportunity to come up to Dr. Packer, his event, his barbecue that he has later in the year. Why aren't we, for example, giving the same opportunity to a band? If it has to be something more local, I have advocated in the past, why not for the intermission of interprimary promise the band that win the road march, or whoever win the road march, you will be allowed to perform at intermission. So I think that there is some criticism of the bands and the fact that they only seem to participate during one part of the year, but it's not just their responsibility. I feel like there has to be a collective responsibility and ways to make persons who participate in culture armor, ways to get them to be ambassadors for the nation for at least a year, ways to get them exposure, because their exposure is the exposure of the island. So it's really confusing for me to see a cultural festival and music being so integral to culture that we just basically look at this thing and they kind of give up and the division done.
I agree, but then again, the government sets the tone. It's a festival with people on the government's payroll, and Culturama, we don't distinguish between blue and green. We don't say participate if you're blue, don't participate if you're green. We say we want everybody to participate in the festival. But then again, how do you deal with a government that tells you straight and clear, we think that 2020 favors the government, and so we are not going to give them a single ad to play on their radio station? How do you deal with a government that says, for example, the topics are real entertainment, you're good enough for us to send the premier and other people to come to get some exposure, but you're not good enough to get $1 in terms of promotions, in terms of ads? The government sets the tone, Alan.
And that's why, similar to campaign finance and all these kind of different things that I'm saying, maybe in this particular one here, we need to remove the government. Maybe we have seen that this is something that is not conducive to the people, and maybe this is one of them things where an opposition member should raise it and try to introduce this as a new bill in Parliament, because if the people support it and the government say no, we don't want this thing, we're gonna continue to be the sole ones who determine this. It's just gonna leave it open for that type of abuse. I just tell people, when you look back into like early America, this is the same kind of thing that you would find. But they went through the experience and they determined that this is not gonna be good for business if there is not any meritocracy. You can't just hire your friends. You can't just support your friends if we are gonna make these events as good as they can be. So I don't know if I had conversations with Kitishans if they would feel like Pam is excluded, but I don't feel the same level of politics entering Sinki's Carnival, for example. It doesn't seem like to me like that is an issue. Whereas in Nevis, it has become, for me, a major issue that we got to get over. I will say that we're, for example, you get to a point where everything you say is taken as a criticism. Sometimes you get to the point, and I have gotten to this point where I'm like, well, okay, all right, well, you know better than me, so you just do everything. And that, even that in itself, causes people to kind of lose interest. Because I'm not interested in everything I say. You gonna take it as I'm hating. For example, when I gave the example of the bands performing during inter-primary, that doesn't have anything to do with politics, no? We just talking about exposure, but it just, there are certain things where people have taken everything that is surrounding these things and every comment that is made to be a political comment. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to remove that aspect.
Okay. I done with Culturama for this week. But of course, we can come back to it next week. I want to take you to a little bit of destiny. You know, I always like to get back to destiny. And there's a comment which has resurfaced and has been circulating a lot. Janssen has decided that and pronounced the fact that, hey, listen, some of our laws in St. Kitts Nevis are too outdated, and the example he gave is witchcraft. You saw that? You heard that?
I saw it, but my interpretation of what he is saying is different, it seems, from the general public. So what is your interpretation of what he said?
Well, first of all, he is going back to their code that they want to have over there. And listen, I have no problems with them having a development. If they want to do 3 hotels, go ahead and do your 3 hotels. But I don't want you to hide behind a SSZ. And I don't want you to tell me that, hey, listen, I'm coming into your country and I am going to be living here, but I want to live under my own code. And my own code includes not necessarily that he wants to practice witchcraft, but he gave that as an example. So let me use that as an example. He wants to have the right to indulge in that. That is my interpretation.
Okay. So, and this is where my confusion came in. He was speaking about it being outdated and all this type of thing. My interpretation was that he did not feel like the legislation was necessary. So I guess maybe me and you are on the same path here. But I didn't look at it like he wants to engage in some kind of witchcraft or the other. If I don't know of any modern laws with regards to witchcraft, I feel like we have thrown away all of those. So I don't know. I as I said, I don't think that his goal there was to be nefarious, but people have certainly interpreted what he has said as such. I personally don't see what is the benefit of the particular law in question. So I'm more inclined to be on his side. So I don't know. But and once again, I have no interest in doing any kind of witchcraft. When you look at that law actually, that law was implemented by Europeans in a climate where they thought that the West Africans and the island were engaging in this and that it was having some type of effect upon them. So I look at it really and truly as a restraint on African culture. So I guess we on the same side of this, but for different reasons. But I'm willing to hear the other argument, but I just don't think that was his goal.
I think somebody is going to have to press him for a deeper explanation on that. But moving right along, Alan, we're showing 7 minutes past there, so we have 23 minutes left. An interesting development on reparations, and we have been threatening to look at this for quite a little while. Suella Braverman, former Home Secretary of the United Kingdom, her parents from Kenya and Mauritius, made a statement which has infuriated a lot of people. Let's go with that.
The catalyst here is a public post on X, formerly Twitter, by Suella Braverman. And the sources note she is a major political figure of Indian descent. Her parents immigrated to the UK from Kenya and Mauritius.
Right, which adds a really profound layer of complexity to her stance.
Yeah, definitely. She's bringing a very specific, complex demographic background into her defense of the British imperial legacy.
And as a former Home Secretary, she is a heavyweight in UK politics. When she speaks, people listen.
Exactly. So in her statement, she acknowledges that slavery was, quote, abhorrent, but then she just immediately pivots.
Yeah, the pivot is the crucial part.
Right. She claims that expecting British people of the 21st century to pay for actions that took place in the 18th century, well, she says it has no basis in law.
And that phrase is doing a lot of heavy lifting. By constantly repeating no basis in law, she's basically using the current legal framework as a shield.
It kind of feels like she's trying to drag this massive, world-altering moral failing into like a small claims court. She's trying to avoid the moral debate altogether.
Well, it's actually more proactive than just a shield. It is a deliberate venue change.
A venue change.
Think about it. When a politician is faced with an undeniable moral catastrophe, like chattel slavery, winning a debate on moral grounds is just impossible.
Right. You can't defend the indefensible.
Exactly. So the strategy is to move the goalpost to a venue where they have the home field advantage. And in this case, that's the strict technical interpretation of current domestic law.
Oh, I see. So by declaring it has no legal basis, she's shutting the door before anyone can even, evaluate the historical damage.
Precisely. It sends this message that regardless of the trauma inflicted, the modern legal system simply isn't designed to process invoices from 3 centuries ago.
But the wild thing is, she doesn't just close the door. She actively demands a refund.
Yeah, the reverse reparations argument.
Right. She argues that if the government's going to seriously entertain the idea of reparations, the money should actually flow in the opposite direction.
Which is just a stunning rhetorical maneuver.
She claims former colonies should pay Britain back for its considerable investment, effort, and contribution. And she specifically points to the infrastructure and democratic foundations laid during the empire.
It attempts to fundamentally redefine the entire legacy of the empire. Instead of framing the imperial era as, a period of brutal wealth extraction.
And human exploitation, yeah.
Right. It rebrands it as a period of benevolent municipal investment.
It's just, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of someone living in Jamaica right now reading those comments.
It has to be incredibly jarring.
Absolutely. You're part of a nation seeking redress for centuries of unpaid labor and the, structural devastation of chattel slavery. And a prominent voice from your former colonizer tells you that you actually owe them a debt.
Yeah, the psychological impact of that cannot be overstated.
It sounds like a landlord who oversaw a highly abusive, exploitative tenancy, but is now demanding the tenant pay them for unrequested renovations they left behind.
Wow, that analogy hits the structural friction perfectly. That's exactly what it feels like.
Right, like thanks for the plumbing I never asked for while you're ruining my life.
Exactly. For generations, the national narrative in Jamaica has been a struggle to seek acknowledgement for this historical trauma, a trauma that shaped their entire demographic and economic foundation.
And to have a major UK political figure publicly state that the ledger is actually balanced in the other direction. I mean, it's just wild.
I'm not sure that you want me to reply to things that really are asinine. And certainly the notion that we should pay the United Kingdom for oppressing us, for enslaving us, and for treating us as chattel. And that is the difference. Slavery existed before, but this was the first time that human beings were defined as chattel. And I've been very clear all along that the 1661 Slave Code of Barbados, which predated the Code Noir, which the French have just repealed less than 2 months ago, all distinguished themselves, and all of the slave laws that followed the 1661 Slave Code of Barbados, by the treatment of human beings as chattel. We're not asking for charity. We're asking to be able to ensure that justice can be done. In 1834, the British Parliament did not need to be persuaded of that fact with respect to the loss of property because we were chattel, and the compensation of the slave owners of £20 million. I would like to advise that those who have not yet read sufficient to understand the history do so before making comments that really do not reflect well on them. With respect to the movement, this is a global movement now. We just came from Accra in Ghana, and as you know, the United Nations passed the resolution that Ghana brought in March of this year. We have seen Pope Leo make comments in this year of our Lord. We have seen President Macron recognize that the conversation for reparations, just as His Majesty King Charles, when he was Prince Charles at the opening of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Rwanda, stated clearly that reparations was a conversation whose time had come. I have no doubt that there are British parliamentarians who want to distract people from the domestic politics of the United Kingdom at this point in time. But the Caribbean should not be used as a prop in those circumstances. Thank you.
Alan, the Suella Braverman's comment was met frontally by Prime Minister Mia Mottley, calling the comment, suggesting that the Caribbean people and African people who are seeking reparations should in fact have to pay for being enslaved. That $20 million loan that was taken in 1835 was finally repaid in 2015. But the trouble is that the slave owners were paid and the enslaved people got nothing.
And I feel like that is a very key point that contradicts her statement that we are not equipped to deal with these things that happened 300, 200 years ago. Additionally, and I don't know how this is going to sound, but I'm going to say it anyway. So, in the 1800s, it is in the 1900s. When we discuss, when we talk about the partition of Hindustan into Pakistan and India, Alan Powell, as the descendant of West African slaves, does not have a dog in the fight, and my opinion on that matter does not particularly matter to anybody. That is a case for the Hindustanis, the Indians, the Muslims in that area to determine what is right. So when they talk about the one about the coin or diamond, that is something that is beyond my jurisdiction. In the same manner, this lady who is of Indian descent, who is from the east coast of Africa, does not have any jurisdiction to tell me what is taking place with regards to reparations. That ain't her fight. Only to the extent that she is a politician, yeah, you could talk, but beyond that, this is not her fight. And I disqualify not just people from the East Coast, I disqualify people from Southern Africa, people from Northern Africa. This is a conversation between descendants and also people who in West Africa right now at this current moment in time. One thing I would add is that we also need reparations from West Africans. And this is another thing what we have to really be honest about when we speak about the slave trade. These people set up trading posts on the coast. There were no guns pointed into Africa. All the guns was pointed out to the sea. You go there right now, you cannot find a gun that is pointed into Africa. The threat for them is coming from the sea. There are West Africans right now who, just like Europeans, benefited from the transatlantic slave trade. Maybe the first couple of times that they traded, they gave them persons who were in their prison, but it evolved into a situation where they would go into the interior, they would knock out some people from different tribes, because you got to understand how slavery got. I'm not gonna send my people in, but I will go inside and knock out, because Africa is a very diverse place. The people who are on the coast do not call themselves the same names as the people who in the interior. They don't practice the same cultures. So this is why when you look at the African slave trade, there are people on the coast who living in castles, who got the gold and all this thing, generational money, who also owe us reparations. They were the ones who were selling our ancestors to the Europeans on the coast at these slave trading posts. So this was a business, and we need to look at all of the players involved. I don't really hear people, because we tend to get swept up and we tell them, we're brothers. Not really. Not all of us. Some of us are our brothers, and some of us are the victims of who we just be calling brothers. And if we don't take our time to understand the actual dynamics of how the slave trade worked, we will incorporate some people into our struggle who are not part of our struggle. I always tell people, when I'm talking about slavery and reparations, I'm not talking about everybody in Africa. Even if there were reparations paid, I'm not talking to everybody in Nevis. If you are, for example, of Chinese descent, and there is reparations to be paid to people in Nevis, should you qualify for reparations? I don't think so. If there are some kind of reparations paid for what China endured during World War I, should I be paid? I'm definitely not gonna get any pay. So the need to make the argument a legal argument is because all of these different dynamics need to be sorted out. And we need to make sure that we are not wasting time having conversations with people who are not qualified, who are a distraction from the overall goal, and who will not benefit us, help us in any aspect. It feels to me like they put this woman up there to say some words, and she was like, okay, can't wait. But her credentials means for me that she is not qualified in this conversation.
Okay. Running out of time, Alan. We got 8 minutes left. Let me make 2 announcements. On the 9th of August, the NRP will be having its General Council. Of course, the convention will be the first Sunday in October. And so keep those 2 dates in mind. August 9th, General Council, and August 9th means next week. Happening in Cotton Ground at the Community Center at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then
could you could do it afterwards, but could you explain to the people what is the difference between the General Council and the convention?
The General Council is the meeting where you bring everybody together to approve and bless not just the agenda, but the plans for the convention. And you notice that there is a gap between the General Council and the convention. This is when you bring the general body together. Normally, if it is an election meeting, by that time you would know who are the persons who have been nominated for positions within the party. But this is not an election meeting coming up, election convention, because we changed the constitution so that we now have elections every 3 years. And so this is not going to be one of those meetings. The other difference is that the General Council, that one is managed by the president and leader of the party. So that would be Dr. Janice Daniel Hodges meeting the General Council. The convention is managed by the chairperson of the party. And so you have those fundamental differences. If you have resolutions that you want to prepare and get ready for convention, this is the place where you do that kind of stuff. But it's one of those meetings for members and friends. Each one of the arms, each one of the constituencies would have the set number of delegates where they will attend and participate in, ask questions, get answers and so on, and prepare for the bigger meeting, which is the convention.
As you spoke about delegates, next week we're going to talk about the Boundaries Commission.
Yes, that has been on the agenda for quite a while, so we'll put that down early for next week. I think we have time for one other. I listened to the commentary by Dwyer Astafan, and one particular point jumped out, so let's see if we can do that.
Who will lead them? Will they be able to get their act together? If Dr. Richards leads them, given his obligations to the USA as a permanent resident of that country, might all of this compromise his ability to fairly and fully serve the people of Sandy Point and the people of the country generally? I'm told that he recently completed a 4-month stay in the US in order to protect his US permanent residency status, and that he recently declared that he was not going to give up his green card. We can't be mad at him for that. He has to choose what is best for him. But the voters have to choose what is best for the voters. And where those two things don't intersect, the voters have to do what they have to do. This is nothing personal. Voters have to become clinical, objective, rational, and determined and deliberate. All of this emotion and personal stuff is blocking us from progress.
Any reaction?
Well, it just seemed like Dwyer is a PAM professional at this moment in time. I actually listened to the interview when Sean was speaking about Pam and how he doesn't know anything about the party. Well, all of these things are things that I have also said. It's confusing to me. Not just, I wouldn't even bring in the fact that he's a permanent resident of the United States. There are other things. When you look at what Sean led them to, Sean led Pam to a unity government. We see how that ended up. He then pivoted to a partnership, because a lot of people don't remember this. Nobody seems to talk about it. But when you think about the last election, remember Pam and CCM did a joint campaign?
Correct.
And when you look at the loyalty that the Premier seemed to have expressed with regards to team unity, he always says, well, we couldn't break it up because we promised him, even though you have one seat, that you are going to be our leader. And the thing I would like somebody to dive into is, so was the agreement for the last election that no matter what happened, Mark Brantley was going to be the leader? If Pam had won 3 seats, would he be Premier / Prime Minister or Prime Minister / Premier? Because as soon as they went to Parliament, there was no mention of Pam. Pam was not given any senators. Pam was not given the leadership of the opposition. Pam was not given anything. All we have seen is a steady diet of upholding the Labour Party, they campaign against in the last election. It is very confusing to me. And so when I see that Sean Richards is responsible for these type of things, I cannot justify him as a leader going forward. I think he has already demonstrated where he's leading Pam.
We're going to see. While we're around, we'll know what happens by the time the convention comes around, if not before. Because the last day for Shani was the last Friday in the month of July. And so
she also did not come to the Christina Memorial.
Noticeably absent.
Indeed.
Okay, Alan, one last thing. Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, the representative for Nevis 4, will be live on 2020 tomorrow morning at 10. So she's going to be here making a live address, and we'll find out what matters she has to put before the people. But Culturama is done. We're looking forward to a new day in Nevis, and the leader of the Nevis Reformation Party, the Honorable Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, will be live 10 o'clock in the morning on 2020 Vision Radio. So I'm not even going to guess what she's going to speak about. I'll just let her do the speaking herself. It's 11:30. Alan, there is one person who is trying desperately to get in. Let's take it quickly. Hi, good morning. We're at the end of the program, so you just have a little time.
Me recognize. Chat. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Just a little reminder for Alan. So, Carla, you will do the reminders too.
Okay.
Not early the program, me said, me see like think politicians, maybe politicians advertise like thank you so much. You know, like thank you politicians advertise maybe. So me just remind for and doing that Carlisle, because remember the Premier Michael thank you. Not gonna business, so we just want to know if he may make one invite that they could come back. You understand me say? So you are on research out that.
I got you. He's going back to when the Premier had told the people in Sinky to stay out of Nevis business. But listen, at the people level, Alan, the people in St. Kitts have never, ever considered that nonsense that was spoken by the Premier. They come in their numbers every year, and this year was no different.
And I also think that the context he was speaking about was from a political perspective. I cannot imagine that the Premier was bold enough to say that and meant that they shouldn't come Nevis to spend money on lime and that type of situation. So
he didn't want them involved in Culturama. Remember, there was a year when we had quite a number of Calypsonians who registered and took part. The Premier wasn't interested in that.
Well, maybe he changed the perspective after King Cairo now, because I don't feel like they're going to sing so hard against the government. So maybe he is changing his mind as we speak. Based off of these results.
Might be harder. Final thoughts, Alan?
Well, I just wanted to add too. It kind of difficult because somebody has pointed. I think it was Obi who said that. Who asked a question? When last somebody from Nevis won the swimsuit competition?
Good question.
So I feel like that definitely has changed. So my answer would be yeah, man. And even when you look at the bands and them, Core is getting their first booking for Culturama. I think in a few days, Culturama is done. So that just shows you what is taking place. The St. Kitts bands are thriving during Culturama because they are not cutting off any of their rates. So they are thriving with Culturama. Yeah, that's it for me. But we definitely got to speak about Boundary Commission and in particular the history of why Gingerland was the sole constituency in Nevis to have a federal seat for itself.
Next week we'll deal with that next week. Today, this afternoon, in fact, is the funeral for King Starshield. And so we are going to leave you this morning with a song that he did 20 years ago. Alan, see you next week.
Take it easy.
To the people of Nevis, this is your duty in the quest for peace, progress,